ruining my life with his reforms, wrecking my kids with his laws, killing me softly with his lies, taking my children, my whole life, giving it all to my ex-wife, killing me softly with his reforms. I heard he was a good man, I heard he had a plan, and so I voted for him, fell for his cruel scam, and now I'm left with nothing. Kids and money's gone, ruining my life with these reforms, wrecking my kids with these laws, killing me softly with his lies, taking my children, my whole life, giving it all to my ex-wife, killing me softly with his reforms. Thank you.
They've been a great addition to Dads on the Air, and that was Peter Vandervoort and Ian Purdy. They've been a wonderful addition to the program. Have Howard's family law and child support reforms been a success? As the media outlet which has followed these issues closer than anyone else in the country, Dads on the Air is very sad to report the answer is a resounding no. Absolutely not. To understand why an air of decay and deceit has adhered to a dying Howard government, you need look no further than the Howard government's treatment of separated dads and their families. It is a case study of how this government has dealt with social issues, with the electorate, and yes, with their once staunch supporters, and why they are now on the nose from coast to coast. By flirting with the separated father vote and then discarding it, by holding in front of grieving and distressed men who have had their children arbitrarily ripped off them the possibility that they could get to see their kids again, by promising and promoting family law reform and then failing to deliver. John Howard and his government have committed emotional abuse on a massive scale. Flirting with the separated dad vote, and don't forget this includes aunts, uncles, grandmothers, grandfathers and second wives, was one of the worst things the Howard government has ever done. Although no proper study has ever been done on the subject, it is often estimated there are about 1 million votes in the separated dad lobby. Mind you, the groups, as we've noticed here, are small, they're unfunded, they're marginalised, they're atomised, and they don't cooperate very well together. But the subjects they talk about concern huge sections of the community. With the polls indicating the government faces annihilation at the coming election, I bet Howard wishes he had 1 million votes in his pocket about now. I bet he's wishing he hadn't double-crossed the dads, their kids, their grandparents, and all those people in separated and blended families whose views, experiences and presentations to government he has ignored. Dads would have died in the ditch for Johnny Howard in September 2003 when he publicly stated he was drawn to shared parenting as the norm post-divorce and would be initiating a wide-ranging inquiry into child custody. He brought great hope to hundreds of thousands of desperately sad, separated parents who thought that for the first time ever, we had a Prime Minister in power who understood their heartache and was going to do something about this country's most despised, dysfunctional, discredited and destructive institutions, the family court and the child support agency. To illustrate just how far the Howard government has fallen in moral stature and in public standing, it's worth remembering back to the immediate aftermath of that 2003 announcement. There were positive front page headlines around the country and Talkback Radio ran hot in support, with call after call detailing the devastation being felt by separated parents. In short, Howard won astonishingly strong support from within the nation's media, widespread and excellent coverage and kudos for his government, and praise for having the gumption to take on the entrenched interests of the judiciary and the bureaucracy. Fast forward to 2007, and the end of the story is very sad indeed. Not only have the judgments coming out of the Family Court and the Federal Magistrate Service demonstrated that they have no intention of reforming their anti-father bias, the hated child support agency is as bad or worse today as it has ever been. Even in the past fortnight, we've seen yet more abusive announcements from the government that it will hunt down all those so-called rich dads, anyone feeling rich here, and make them pay, and pay. There was no more disgusting sight in public life than a well-fed Joe Hockey with his massive income and his intact family, boasting about the latest addition to his growing family, while vowing he would pursue dads unfortunate enough to have become divorced, quote, to the grave. As many separated dads were natural Labor voters who voted Liberal for the first time purely on the issue of family law reform, perhaps the dads will now chase him to his political grave. Dads on the Air estimates that 12 clients of the Child Support Agency will die today, just as they've done every other day for years. Matt Miller, of course, was asked this same question as we've asked people for many years now. How many clients of yours die each day? He dismissed the question as facile. Great. No, it's not. This rate is calculated on information provided by the agency from Freedom of Information requests, which showed that 6.1% of all cases terminate because of the death of a party. About 75,000 cases will terminate this year. It's a sort of evolving stock and maturing stock. About 75,000 cases will terminate this year. This constitutes a figure of around 3 times what you would expect in a similar aged group, and is entirely due to the poor treatment dished out to separated dads by the Family Court, the Child Support Agency and all their supporting bureaucracies, including Centrelink, who treat men and single dads with complete contempt. That's heading towards 50,000 deaths since John Howard came to power. Even the government's own favourite academic, family law insider Patrick Parkinson, has admitted that the appeal judgments that are taking place over the latest reforms are all over the place and failing to fulfil the intent and spirit of the legislation, which allegedly was to improve children's relationships with their fathers post-separation. We are getting decisions all over the place going different ways, Professor Parkinson told a WA newspaper recently. Federal Attorney General Philip Ruddock, who spoke here yesterday, and proved once again, I might say, the point that he has absolutely no idea why his government rejected the notion of a rebuttable presumption of 50-50 shared parenting. It was in a report which was absolutely characteristic of government reports. It bore no relationship to the evidence and no relationship to reality, and it was an arbitrary decision by a bureaucrat. And he, to this day, does not understand why he's peddling these soiled wares. He said the intent of the reforms was to ensure that both parents are allowed equal access to and responsibility for raising their children after separation. If equal child access was not appropriate, the court should consider an arrangement for substantial time with both parents. Now that is not what's happening. Dads on the Air has argued as strongly as we could in numerous broadcasts that the state had no right to arbitrarily remove a child from one perfectly decent, loving parent or the other, and that the only way to remove the appalling debacle that is child custody in this country was to implement a rebuttable presumption of 50-50 joint custody for separating parents. This then leaves you in a position where the parents themselves, rather than being given power to one or the other, can work out the most sensible arrangements between them. No child should be denied a relationship with either its mother or father without very good reason. But it was all too simple for the politicians, and of course it would have eaten away at the multi-billion-dollar industry of removing children from their fathers. And so, because everyone in the government knew better, we've got the current mess. We said at the time that the liars, the lawyers, the bureaucrats and the social engineers have won the day, and everything that has happened since proves our point.